Hey everyone, welcome back to Fluent Vibes Podcast, your daily English practice podcast. I'm Amy.
And I'm Sam. Thanks for being here today. If you're new, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our daily episodes. We post a brand new conversation on books, life lessons, English tips, and many more every single day so that you may improve your English.
Usually when we think about self-defense, there's this expectation of something intensely physical. You know, you picture a dojo, you picture blocking a punch or like stepping out of the way of a swinging door.
Right. It's highly kinetic. It's visible.
Exactly. The threat is just right there in front of you. The physics are clear, and your response is this immediate bodily movement.
It relies on tangible geometry, right? You see the danger coming, you calculate its trajectory, and you basically just move your mass out of its path.
Yeah, but then, you step into the arena of social interaction, into the world of human conversation, and suddenly that physical dojo just vanishes.
Quickly.
We're dealing with an environment where the threats are totally invisible. A word is thrown at you, a phrase, maybe a loaded question at a dinner party, or, a passive-aggressive comment in a meeting.
Yeah, those are the worst.
And it hits you, and sometimes, honestly, harder than a physical punch. But there's no obvious physical way to block it. You're just standing there caught in this incredibly murky, messy psychological space, feeling your heart rate spike.
Because it functions as a psychological ambush.
Yeah.
The emotional impact on your nervous system is immediate, but the defensive protocol is completely ambiguous. You don't have a physical shield you can just, raise.
Right, and that ambiguity is exactly what we are stripping away today. Welcome to the deep dive. We are looking at a single, incredibly concentrated phrase today.
Highly concentrated.
To give you some context on just how concentrated this is, our entire source material today is literally 15 words.
Just 15?
Yeah. We are looking at a title and a subtitle, which is Excerpts from the Art of Mastering English Insults: How to Deal with Insults in English Language.
It's quite a title.
I know it sounds a bit absurd to dedicate an entire deep dive to 15 words, but okay, let's unpack this. Because to look at a title this brief and realize it holds a complete multi-layered framework for human resilience is just wild.
It really is.
Yeah.
And, analyzing the framing of a text, the specific architecture of the words chosen to introduce a concept, it often reveals the underlying mechanisms of the philosophy itself.
Yeah, the framing does a lot of the heavy lifting.
Exactly. A title sets the terms of engagement. It tells the reader exactly what psychological posture they need to assume. So when we look at this brief text, it immediately categorizes the subject. It calls it the art of mastering.
Right.
So before we even address the insult itself, we really have to look at how the experience is being classified.
Because, think about what an art is. If you think about martial arts or painting or playing the cello, you don't just accidentally execute a masterpiece.
Well, of course not.
You don't accidentally pull off a perfect judo throw. By labeling the handling of an insult as an art, the text is taking something that is usually a really messy, highly emotional, knee-jerk reaction.
That hot flush of shame or anger.
Exactly. It takes that and it elevates it. It's turning it into a refined, intentional skill.
Well, what's fascinating here is if we look closely at the concept of mastery, it carries a vital biological and psychological implication, which is that no one is born with it.
Oh, right.
No human infant enters the world naturally immune to the sting of rejection or verbal hostility. In fact, evolutionary biology dictates the exact opposite.
Wait, really? The exact opposite?
Yeah, absolutely. For early humans, being socially rejected by the tribe literally meant death.
Wow.
Starvation or predation. We are biologically hardwired to care deeply about our social standing.
So when someone insults you, that sudden spike of anxiety or anger isn't like a personality flaw.
Not at all.
It's an ancient survival mechanism kicking in. Your brain is flashing this massive warning light that your standing in the tribe is under attack.
And that is why an insult physically hurts. Neuroscience shows that social rejection activates the exact same pain pathways in the brain as a physical injury.
That is mind-blowing.
It's true. So by framing this as something to be mastered, the text implicitly acknowledges that your initial painful vulnerability is just the baseline human condition. You are supposed to feel it.
Right.
But mastery is the learned capability to override that ancient biological panic. It's a cognitive destination you arrive at through deliberate, practiced effort.
That makes so much sense. It's basically saying that the feeling of being completely tongue-tied or defensive and hurt when someone casually insults you is just you being a novice.
Precisely.
That is you holding the paintbrush for the first time, not knowing what to do with the canvas.
And that fundamentally reframes the experience of being targeted. Receiving an insult is almost universally categorized as a moment of victimization.
Right, like you're just absorbing a blow.
Exactly. It's a minor trauma where someone else is imposing their will on you. But the moment you apply the framework of the art of mastering, you take that chaotic, painful experience and you impose structure on it.
You take back the narrative.
You transition the reader from a passive victim of cruelty to an active student of a discipline.
So you aren't just suffering through a bad interaction with like a rude coworker. You're in the studio. You're practicing your art. It creates this vital emotional distance. The insult is no longer a direct strike to your ego. It's simply material for you to work with. It's a puzzle to solve.
And that distance is the mechanism of defense. When you view an insult objectively as an artistic or academic problem to decode, you engage the prefrontal cortex, which is the logical part of your brain.
Okay.
And doing that actively suppresses the amygdala.
The emotional center.
Right, the emotional center that wants to trigger that fight or flight response.
Yeah.
You are literally biologically changing how you process the threat.
I have to be honest, though, I have a deeply flawed theory about this text that I need to bring up.
Let's hear it.
So, when I first read those first few words, The Art of Mastering English Insults, my immediate reaction was that this is a bully's handbook.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, it sounds like a guide on how to become the most verbally destructive, mean-spirited person in the room. I pictured this manual teaching you how to craft the perfect, devastating zinger to just obliterate someone's self-esteem.
A tactical guide for the weaponization of language.
Yes. It sounds incredibly aggressive. It feels like it's teaching offense, not defense.
Well, that tension is entirely intentional. And I'd argue it makes the pivot in the subtitle all the more powerful.
How so?
The text grabs your attention with the promise of power, right? Mastering English insults. But then it immediately redefines what true power actually looks like in a social dynamic.
Oh, because of the subtitle?
Exactly. The subtitle is How to Deal with Insults. It flips the script from offensive destruction to defensive resilience.
Dealing with them, not delivering them.
The text places you firmly in a deflectus posture. We have to look at the underlying mechanics of an insult to understand why this is the true position of power.
Okay, let's do that.
When a person delivers an insult, what is their actual goal? They're attempting to dictate your emotional state. They want to trigger a reaction.
Anger, tears, getting flustered.
Or even a counterattack. That reaction is the currency they're trying to extract from you to feel dominant.
So throwing an insult is basically a transaction. They put the insult in the vending machine, and they expect to get a candy bar of emotional distress in return.
That's a great analogy. And if we connect this to the bigger picture of emotional regulation, true mastery isn't kicking the vending machine. We're trying to build a better machine.
Right.
True mastery is unplugging the machine entirely. Dealing with an insult means denying the attacker the dopamine hit of your reaction. Anyone can give in to an emotional outburst and throw a verbal punch. That requires zero art.
Right. A toddler in a sandbox can call someone a name.
Exactly. But intercepting an incoming attack, processing the intent behind it, and actively choosing not to provide the desired emotional response, that is the retention of control.
It prevents the attacker from dictating the terms of the interaction.
Precisely.
I love that phrasing, retention of control, because dealing with an insult doesn't mean just like silently absorbing it and letting it fester. It isn't about being a doormat.
No, not at all.
It implies an active methodology. You categorize the attack, you recognize the mechanism the person's trying to use against you, and you disarm it.
And this brings us to a crucial qualifier in our source text. The subtitle doesn't just say how to deal with insults. It includes a very specific parameter in English language.
Yeah, here's where it gets really interesting. Why call out the English language specifically?
It's a great question.
It suggests that English possesses these unique mechanisms, or a specific vocabulary, or maybe a cultural weight that makes its insults so uniquely complex that you need a dedicated strategy just to survive them.
Well, language is never just a neutral conveyor belt for transmitting data. It carries the entire cultural DNA and historical baggage of the people who speak it.
Of course.
And English is an extraordinarily vast hybrid language. It has absorbed vocabulary and syntax from Latin, French, Germanic roots, global colonialism.
It's a huge melting pot.
Exactly.
Right.
And this massive, sprawling lexicon allows for incredibly subtle, nuanced forms of communication.
But which means it allows for incredibly subtle, nuanced forms of cruelty.
Unfortunately, yes. The mechanism of an English insult is often heavily layered. I mean, in many cultures, an insult is direct and blunt. The hostility is entirely on the surface.
You know exactly where you stand.
Right. But English has developed robust mechanisms for plausible deniability. We have sarcasm. We have understatement. We have irony.
Oh, and the backhanded compliment.
Yes. The ultimate Trojan horse of the English language.
I love that. The Trojan horse is the perfect metaphor here.
Yeah.
Because the wooden exterior of the statement is constructed out of polite, social acceptable vocabulary.
Right.
But hidden inside that polite exterior are the hostile soldiers, the actual intent of the insult.
Exactly.
I'm thinking of the classic American Southern phrase, bless your heart.
Oh, a perfect example.
Right. If you translate those words literally or just drop them into another cultural context, it sounds like a genuine benediction. It sounds like you're wishing someone well.
Literally blessing their heart.
Exactly. But in the specific cultural context of English, it is often a devastating, condescending dismissal of someone's intelligence or competence.
And the art of dealing with that requires a complex cognitive process. You cannot react to the literal words, bless your heart, or you look foolish for getting angry at a blessing.
Right. You look at the crazy one.
You do. You have to decode the subtext, recognize the hostile intent hidden beneath the cultural politeness, and then formulate a response that neutralizes the subtext without violating the polite, surface-level rules of the conversation.
It's exhausting. I mean, you're sitting in a corporate meeting and someone says, per my last email.
Oh, the classic corporate jab.
Right. And on the surface, they are just referencing a previous document. But the subtext is, you are an idiot who cannot read.
Loud and clear.
But if you get angry, they get to say, whoa, I was just pointing you to the file. They have trapped you using the mechanics of the language.
They absolutely have.
So, of course, you need an art to master it. You need to be able to see the matrix of the language to understand how you are being attacked before you can even begin to defend yourself.
And this complexity really explains the presence of perhaps the most striking word in the entire source text. It's the very first word, excerpts.
Right. Excerpts from the art of mastering English insults.
The inclusion of the word excerpts fundamentally changes the scale of what we're discussing here. An excerpt implies a fraction of a much larger comprehensive body of work.
Right. It's not the whole thing.
We are not looking at a pamphlet or like a simple top 10 list of comebacks. The implication is that there is a tome, a massive, weighty manual detailing a vast taxonomy of verbal conflict.
That's wild. It implies that there are chapters upon chapters, like sections dedicated to the passive-aggressive email, volumes dedicated to the family dinner microaggression.
Exactly. It reinforces the sheer volume of strategies needed to handle English insults. And this raises an important question about the nature of human interaction. Just how deeply embedded is conflict in our daily communication?
I mean, when you think about it, the existence of a massive encyclopedia of insults tells you that these attacks are not rare anomalies.
Not at all.
It's not a freak lightning strike when someone is rude to you. It's the constant pervasive weather of the linguistic landscape.
Consider how often we encounter casual insults or direct verbal hostility that a larger manual would deem it necessary to study, categorize, and counter every single variation.
Yeah.
The text normalizes the struggle of the listener. It validates the exhaustion you feel after a really tense social gathering.
Because if you feel like you're constantly having to navigate prickly people, you aren't imagining things. You aren't just being overly sensitive.
No, it's a structural reality.
It's such a universal, mechanically complex problem that someone had to write a masterwork on it.
Yeah.
And we are only looking at the excerpts needed just to survive a standard conversation.
It circles back to your initial analogy of the dojo. You do not learn one single block and call yourself a martial arts master. You learn hundreds of defensive variations because the attacks can come from an infinite number of angles, speeds, and styles. And the English language provides an infinite number of angles for an insult, relying on shifting cultural assumptions, power dynamics, and irony.
So the defense has to be equally expansive. You have to understand the mechanics of the attack so well that you can choose your response.
Exactly.
It's like seeing the code behind the insult. When someone tries to trap you with a passive-aggressive comment, you see the linguistic trap they set, you recognize the emotional reaction they're trying to extract from you, and you simply refuse to step on the tripwire.
That is the ultimate goal of emotional detachment. You observe the insult objectively, you analyze its linguistic construction, and you neutralize its intent by rendering it ineffective.
You don't fight the trap.
No, you dismantle it.
So what does this all mean for you, listening right now? We started with just 15 words, and we've unpacked an entire philosophy of social survival. The takeaway here is incredibly practical because it asks you to completely shift your paradigm when it comes to daily social friction.
It offers a radical reframing of how we process negativity.
It means viewing incoming hostility not as a personal attack that reflects your worth. It isn't a tragic event that you have to suffer through and let ruin your day.
No.
It's a technical interaction. It's a linguistic and psychological variable that simply needs to be managed. It's the difference between standing in a rainstorm and just letting yourself get soaked and miserable versus standing in that same rainstorm while methodically building an umbrella out of the materials around you.
That's a powerful image.
The rain is still falling, the insults are still happening, but your relationship to them has completely changed. You are protected.
And that leads to a rather profound shift in how we might view the people who insult us. If dealing with an insult is truly an art form that we must master a discipline requiring practice, analysis, and cognitive refinement, does that mean every insult directed at you is no longer a moment of victimization?
Wow.
Is it possible that the condescending colleague or the passive-aggressive relative is actually just providing you with a free opportunity to practice your craft?
I love that. They aren't your tormentor, they're your sparring partner.
Exactly.
They're throwing that invisible punch in the dojo, giving you the chance to perfect your block, to test your emotional balance, and to refine your art. And suddenly, the murky, invisible world of human communication doesn't seem quite so terrifying. You aren't a victim of it. You just step onto the mat and you practice. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend who's learning English. We'll see you tomorrow with another easy conversation. Bye, everyone.